Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to be doing a mid-year unhaul. So I have one of my 2024 goals is I want to say that I have read 75% of my books. So I want at the most 25% of my books as unread. Now, since the beginning of the year, I have bought a bunch of books, such as all of these that I bought in the month of June, and now I need to place them on my bookshelf and I am running out of space. So I'm going to be doing a unhaul of the books that I currently have and kind of walking through what I'm getting rid of, why I'm getting rid of it, and all of that. So if you'd be interested to see the books that I am going to be getting rid of, and I will be donating them either to little libraries around my local area, or I will be taking them to Second and Charles, which is a used bookstore that I get a lot of my books from anyways. I'll be turning them back into that. So if you would like to see what books I'm going to be getting rid of, then go ahead and keep watching. So I have down here, I don't know if you can see it, on the floor I have a little section of all of the books that I have already identified as me wanting to get rid of. So I'm going to be going through those first, and then after I go through all of the books that I'm going to be getting rid of, I'm going to go ahead, and I know there's more books on my bookshelf that I've been looking at and I have no desire to read them again. So that's what we'll be doing next. So let me go ahead and pull out all of the books that I have that I'm going to already identify as getting rid of, and we'll talk about it. So the books that I have already identified, I have 3 right here in a series. A lot of these are, I have several series that I'm going to be getting rid of. So the first series I'm going to be getting rid of is the Mara Dyer series. I did go ahead and finish the series. I think last month I had a video of me finishing the series that I was in the middle of, and this was definitely a 3-star series. It was a young adult series. It just didn't grasp my attention. I really didn't care for the characters. I was kind of bored through a lot of the stuff that they talked about, and it's just not anything that I'm going to be wanting to pick up. So we will be probably turning these into the little library. So we'll be doing donations of these 3 books. And then the next series I'm going to be getting rid of is actually a series I still want to read, but I'm not going to read these copies, and that is going to be the Outlander series. So I have the first 5 books in the series. I have read the first book, and I've watched some, I don't remember how many of the seasons I've watched on TV, but I do want to finish the series and I want to continue reading it. But I absolutely hate these versions because this is the mass market paperback, and I have a issue with these versions because they're so thick, but they're so small in my hand, and it's just uncomfortable to read. So I am going to be donating these because they have some spicy scenes in them. These are going to go back to Second and Charles because I feel weird about donating romance books with spicy scenes to a little library where any little kid can come by and pick up. I mean, technically they could do the same thing at any bookstore, but I just feel weird giving books that have spicy scenes to little libraries. So this will be going back to Second and Charles and dropping them everywhere. And then the books that I do have another series. These are going to be going to the little library, and that is the Harry Potter series. Now, I absolutely love Harry Potter. The reason I'm getting rid of all of these books is I got brand new versions. So this was Second and Charles version. These were all old, they were used, and while I love Harry Potter, I wanted to go ahead and keep the newer versions, so I got rid of my old used versions. So these will be going to the little libraries. And then we have Heartless. I read this. I gave it a 3.5 or maybe 3.75. I'm not exactly sure. This is kind of the origin story of the Queen of Hearts, and it was okay, but it just wasn't anything that I would ever really want to reread. While I really do enjoy the cover, it's just not anything that I'm going to want to pick up again. And this I'll probably end up putting in little libraries. Wicked. I have tried to read this book so many times. I know there's a new movie coming out with Ariana Grande that's on the Wicked story, and I don't know what it is. I have tried and I have tried and I have tried to read this book, and I just can't. Maybe I'll try to pick this up at the library if I decide I want to try to read it again, but right now I don't see me wanting to pick up the physical copy anytime soon, and I definitely don't need it on my bookshelf. It's not a book that I'm going to be grasping for anytime soon. Tessa Bailey's Fixer Up. I do like Tessa Bailey books, but they're not anything that I ever am like, I'm going to want to reread this, or I want to refer back to this in the future. It's not anything that's like that. This one, she's a clown, and I don't know, like, I really couldn't even tell you anything really about it. I just know that she's a clown. Her parents own like a real estate or some kind of like construction crew. Her and her brothers are part of it with her dad. I think she ends up dating her brother's friend and also a baseball star. I don't know. It was okay. I'm never going to want to reread it. So this one we're going to give back to Second and Charles because it did have some spicy scenes because it is a romance book. Did I mention I Love You? I think I started to read this and I could care less. This is a young adult like a romance book. I don't really know anything about it because I have no intention of trying to read it. I think I picked it up, I read a couple of chapters, and it literally had nothing to do with anything I would be interested in. So we'll take this back to Second and Charles. This is where I got it from to begin with, and we'll just go ahead and do that. Just return it back to them. Just because I don't know what this book is about. It is a young adult, but because I haven't read it, I don't really want to put it in a little bookstore or little library because I just don't know what all is being discussed within this book. Court of the Vampire Queen. This is probably, I think, my first book by Katie Roberts. This one is a romance. This is a girl who gets basically given to a vampire, like her dad gives her to a vampire to have his way with, and it ends up being her, the vampire, and then two of the vampire's friends are in the mix, and the whole point of the book is her wanting to be with child with said vampire. And it was a lot of smut, very little plot, and while it was an enjoyable read, I'm never going to want to read this. So this one we're going to give it back to Second and Charles because it had a lot of spicy scenes, and I am definitely not going to let some little kid pick it up and start to read it. Pucking Around. This book is so heavy. I comment on how heavy this book is every single time I pick it up. This is another girl surrounded by three men. This is a hockey romance. This one I had a DNF. I ended up getting through about, I think, 60% of the book, and there was literally no plot. It was 100% smut and not even a plot to try to go on. I could not tell you what the purpose of this book was other than for her to hook up with every freaking buddy. So I DNF'd it. This is definitely going to be a Second and Charles thing because there's way too much in here to try to give to some young, impressionable young kid. Sally Rooney, Normal People. I DNF'd this as well. This was very dry. I was very bored. I didn't like the characters, and I just couldn't get through it. I got through half of it, and it's a very short book, and I couldn't even make it through 200 pages. I think I made it to like 100 pages. This book is 270 something pages. I made it to like 120, and I had to stop. I could not. It was like pulling teeth for me to read this book. So this I'm going to be getting rid of. I am going to be giving this back to Second and Charles because I believe there is a romance, and I think there are some scenes in here. I don't know if they're closed door or open door, so we're just going to be on the safe side and send it over to Second and Charles. To Kill a Shadow. I am getting rid of this because I already have a copy of it. I ended up buying this at Walmart. The sprayed edges got me, but I found this at Walmart, and then literally I think within the next month I got an owl crate of the same book, so I am keeping the owl crate version. This was an okay book. This is the first book of a series. I am curious to read the rest of the series, and while I didn't love this book, I'm hoping that maybe when the second book comes out, maybe the plot will continue and I'll actually like it a little bit better. But I'm gonna go ahead and drop this off at probably, I think I'll give this to the little bookstore because this is I don't remember having any kind of like romantic scene. Actually, I know there's no like spicy scenes in this. One of the things I also didn't really care about this book is the main characters, the male and the female characters meet, and it's like the way it's written, it makes it seem like they just met, and they're literally about to die for each other. Like, they're willing to die for each other after meeting after a very short amount of time. And I just couldn't get behind that romance. It just seemed very spontaneous and very insta love, and so I just couldn't do it. So we're gonna give this version away, and then depending on when the second book comes out, if I end up liking it, then I'll keep the series. But if it's the second book is something I still don't really care for, maybe at that point I'll just unhaul the full series. But we'll give it another, we'll keep it on the bookshelves, my Owl Crate version, just to see how it all pans out. But this is going to go to little libraries. And then the last two books that we're going to be unhauling right now is the Selection series. This is book 1 and book 2. This is a young adult little romance. It's essentially The Bachelor is basically what it is, but the person, all the girls are vying to be married to like the prince that's going to be king of the country. So I did like these books. They were very simple, really quick, fast reads, but as last I checked, they were on Kindle Unlimited. So if I decide I want to continue with the series, I'm just going to read it on Kindle Unlimited. It's not a book that I'm ever really going to want to reread, so there's no need for me to keep the physical copy on my bookshelf. And these are going to go to the little library because they had no spice or anything in it. So those are all the books that I immediately put aside to unhaul. Now we're going to take a look at the rest of the books that I have on my bookshelf and kind of pick out the ones that are still sitting on my shelves that I just am not going to want to read, and I'm just not going to want to get back into. So let's go and pull from my bookshelf now.
Gonna stay in this moment, gonna lay here on the grass. I don't need to
So I pulled some more books from my bookshelf and let's talk about them. So first book that I pulled is The Blood Rose Rebellion. I bought this a while ago from Second & Charles, and I have had absolutely no desire to read this. So I'm going to donate it. This, I think, is a young adult romance. It's a fantasy. It says it's a fast-paced historical fantasy full of magic, romance, and adventure. So I think we're just going to go ahead and return this back to Second & Charles because that's where I ended up getting it to begin with, and I don't really know exactly what's in this book, so we're just going to be on the safe side and turn it back into Second & Charles. Then we have books 1 and books 2 of the School for Good and Evil. I did like these books, but this is also, I think, still on Kindle Unlimited. So if I decide I want to continue with the series, then we'll just go ahead and do it that way. Or I'll just go ahead and read them from the library. But I don't really think I'm going to refer back to a physical copy anytime soon. So we're just going to go ahead and donate these, and we'll give these to the little libraries because they are a young adult fantasy type book with no spice. Girl with a Dragon Tattoo. I read this a while ago, and I just really have had no desire to try to reread it. I did enjoy the book, but it's also in the mass market paperback, which I already said I have an issue with. I do not like these small little books. They're hard for me to flip through, and I don't comfortably like to read these books. So because I've already read it, I don't really foresee me wanting to go back and reread it at any time or continue with the series. We're just going to go ahead and donate it. I'm going to go ahead and give this back to Second & Charles because I don't think there were any spicy scenes, but I think there was some things that I don't know if kids would want to read. So we're just going to go ahead and be on the safe side. Send this to Second & Charles. The Fifth Wave. I bought this a while ago with every intention that I wanted to read it, and it's just been sitting on my bookshelf and I've had no desire to read it. So this will be another one that if I decide to finally read it, I'll just go ahead and pick it up from the library and read it that way. But I don't need to have it on my bookshelf because I have other books that I would want to read or keep that have more interest to me. So this, we're going to go to Second & Charles because since I haven't read it, I don't know what's in it, and we're just going to go ahead and turn it into Second & Charles. Now this next series, the reason I'm getting rid of them is because I saw on Barnes & Noble, before I get rid of this, I'm going to confirm it, but I saw on Barnes & Noble that this edition is going to have a newer cover. They're going to have a Barnes & Noble exclusive edition with, I think, everything being in paperback. So before I get rid of these, I'm going to verify, but I am going to go ahead and get newer versions of the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy. I only have 2 of the hardback and then 1 of the softback or the paperback, which I obviously don't like. I would rather them being all consistent and all the same style of book. So we have a paperback of the first book, and then the second book I have the Barnes & Noble exclusive editions, the hardback. So we're going to double check and make sure that these are actually going to be a special edition coming, I think, in September. So before I get rid of them, I am going to verify. But if that is true, then we'll go ahead and give this back to Second and Charles. And that way I'll have all same editions of this trilogy. And then the last series that I'm going to be getting rid of is the Stalking Jack the Ripper. I have 3 of the 4 books. I have read all 4 of the books, but they're just not anything that I cared for. I've read them all. I have no intention of trying to reread them, so I'm just going to get rid of them. I don't think my oldest is going to want to read this book either, so we're just going to get rid of it. It's not something I'm going to want to reread. And for this one, I'm probably going to go ahead and give it back to Second and Charles, because there is some scenes in it that are a little gory. Not bad, but I just don't want to give them to the little library, just to be on the safe side. So we are going to get rid of the Stalking Jack the Ripper series. And that is all of the books that I'm going to be unhauling in July. And so that is, let me count. Let's count how many books I'm getting rid of. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 18, 16, 17, 21, 22, 23, 24, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36 books. So we are going to be unhauling 36 books from my bookshelf, and we're hopefully going to get even closer to my goal of reading 75% of my physical TBR. So that is going to be it for this video. I'm going to be grouping these in little library piles and Second and Charles piles to go ahead and get them donated, so someone else who might have more interest in these books has an opportunity to pick them up. So with that, thank you so much for watching. If you have not subscribed, please make sure you do so. I would greatly appreciate it, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!